Picture this. It's 5:30 in the morning. The lights are dim and the house is just completely still. Before the kids are awake, before the birds even start chirping, well before the daily chaos of life begins to stir, there is this profound, breathless quiet. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down the exact morning routine and, more importantly, the mindset that built a six-time Olympia champion Chris Bumstead. But I want to be super clear right from the jump here. What we're looking at today isn't just some generic fitness plan or a list of morning chores. No, we're unpacking a lifestyle, a mindset. It's a literal blueprint for personal alignment.
Built in silence. That single phrase really defines this entire philosophy. Just imagine that quiet transition from absolute stillness to deliberate motion. It's the slow, intentional act of tying your shoes in a dark room. It's the tight, careful wrapping of your wrists. It's taking those deep, grounding breaths before you even step foot into the grind. You see, every single small action taken in these early hours, it isn't just to check a box. It's a silent promise to yourself. It's a commitment that's made in the shadows long before anyone is there to clap for you.
All right, let's actually look at the physical architecture of this quiet start. It kicks off with waking up at 5:30 a.m. From there, it moves right into a morning walk to get some immediate sunlight on the face, which is then followed by a dedicated 45-minute cardio session and finally, a period of focused meditation. When Chris talks about this sequence, he really hones in on the sensory details of that morning stillness. It's all about moving your body and getting your water in while your mind is just calm. It's a methodical, honestly almost sacred rhythm that sets this baseline of total control for the rest of his day.
Now here is what's truly fascinating. Chris actually admits to a lot of vulnerability here. He shared that right after he retired from competing, he basically stopped doing a lot of these foundational things. And why? Well, because he no longer had that massive looming deadline of the Mr. Olympia. Without that monumental goal, the discipline just kind of fades. He describes it as this slow drift. First you don't set an alarm, then you skip the cold shower, then you skip the walk. One little thing at a time, you slowly drift away from that confident, self-trusted person you used to be, and you turn into a lesser version of yourself. And let's be real, this happens to absolutely anyone if they aren't careful. So the morning routine becomes this absolutely crucial vehicle to intentionally lock back in every single day.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Building the Vision Through Mental Reps.
As we step onto the treadmill, we're shifting from just physical walking to something way deeper, the internal fire of his visualization technique. This is exactly where the physical work meets the mental forge. So for the first 25 minutes of his cardio, he has this strict rule: absolutely no phone, no scrolling, zero distractions. The only thing playing is a 24/7 meditation track from YouTube. He'd close his eyes, rest his hands on the treadmill, and mentally walk through his entire preparation. He visualizes waking up looking leaner, going to check-ins, getting his tan, standing backstage. It's incredibly visceral. He literally imagines hearing the announcer call his name as a multi-time Mr. Olympia. And this sensory experience is so intense that standing completely alone at 5 a.m. on a treadmill, he'd get full-body chills and actually cry. He was teaching his body to emotionally feel and experience the win long before he ever set foot on that stage.
So what does this actually mean for you and me? Well, it's the difference between being reactive and anxious versus being confident and prepared. Chris realized that if your body emotionally feels like it's already experienced this scenario, your everyday anxieties are just destroyed. Think about it. If you have a massive presentation, a seminar, or even a really difficult conversation coming up, and you mentally and emotionally walk yourself through feeling confident in that exact scenario, well, by the time you actually get there, it's like you've already conquered it.
Moving right along to Section 2, Systematizing the Grind, or the power of monotony. After those 25 minutes of intense mental reps, the eyes open and it's time to systematize the mechanics of the day. We move from the treadmill straight into the kitchen to the actual fuel of the grind. Now, after an hour of cardio, your stomach is grumbling, right? You are suffering in your hunger, but the meal he makes requires zero thought. It's exactly the same every time. A scoop of protein with dark chocolate and creatine, some oats, and a mix of eggs and egg whites. But honestly, here is my favorite detail of this whole thing. The environment is just as repetitive as the food. He has used the exact same phone case for 6 years, he props it up the exact same way on the counter, and he rewards himself by watching an episode of an anime like Naruto or Demon Slayer. It's mundane, it's repetitive, and it is just wonderfully automatic.
Which brings us to a really powerful realization. As Chris puts it, if you have something that never changes, you have a routine you don't have to think about. Life is busy, right? Chaos happens literally every single day. Taking the thinking out of your morning is your ultimate defense against that daily decision fatigue. You just go through the motions, and it builds this unstoppable momentum that carries you right through the rest of the day. You don't have to negotiate with yourself, you just execute the system.
All right, Section 3, Entering the Forge, focusing on the raw effort. The morning sequence is done, and now we step into the gym. The lighting gets stark, casting these deep, dramatic shadows across the room. The focus completely narrows to the raw effort. We're talking sweat dripping, muscles contracting, and that sharp, heavy sound of weights clashing. No extra noise, just work. 5 seconds down. This completely represents the brutal isolation of his training. He starts his upper body days with a triple superset, heavily focusing on what's known as a pails and rails stretch. He gets into this extreme shoulder flexion, a deep, honestly agonizing stretch on the lats, and pulls down as hard as humanly possible for 5 seconds. He's not even physically moving the weight, he's just forcing the scapula to rotate and tuck down his back. Now, it might not look all that entertaining to a bystander, but internally, it is an absolute war of control and raw isolation.
And then, 5 seconds up. He moves into this slow-motion intensity. He pairs those holds with movements like the Cuban press, so pulling up, rotating, and pressing. And listen, it's not about throwing massive, heavy dumbbells around just to look cool. It's about lighting up those tiny stabilizers in the rotator cuffs until they are absolutely burning. He pushes right to the crampy edge of a deep tricep stretch on a 35-degree incline bench, contracting the muscle from a position where you would rarely ever try to move a heavy load. Every single rep is a masterclass in controlled agony. The core takeaway from the gym floor is simply this: no excuses, just work. The focus is never ever on the ego. The camera angles in this space feel powerful yet humble, mostly just showing the back or the side, keeping his face almost entirely out of it. Because the identity isn't the point here. The grind itself is the point. It's all about pushing past your physical limits in total silence and letting the sweat and the controlled breathing speak entirely for themselves. Finally, we arrive at Section 4, Becoming Who You Are, where we define true discipline.
As the gym fan turns off and the workout wraps up, let's transition to exactly why he does all of this. Chris fundamentally redefines the concept of laziness. Normally, we think of laziness as just resting on the couch or sleeping in, right? But he argues that laziness is actually a failure of intention. It's when your actions betray your own internal values during moments of low motivation. Look, when you feel good and pumped up, making good choices is super easy. But when you're exhausted, when you haven't slept well, when you're stuck in traffic and the sky is falling, if your actions in that specific moment of chaos still align with your values, that is pure intention. Laziness isn't about physical rest. It's about justifying bad decisions that you know deep down go against what you truly want.
To live like this requires an ultimate philosophical shift. It's doing it for achievement versus doing it for identity. For years and years, Chris endured the cold showers, the extreme hunger, the exhausting workouts, all for the delayed gratification of winning an Olympia trophy. But he eventually realized that achievement is a really fragile motivator. Once that deadline is gone, the motivation can just vanish into thin air. So now, he operates purely on identity. He aligns his actions with his strict standards simply because it is who he is. That massive shift from "I want to win" to "this is my identity" is what makes discipline actually lasting and sustainable. He sums it up perfectly when he says, "I align myself with them because it's who I am." But here's the secret to the whole thing. You can't just try harder to have this level of discipline. You actually have to create an environment that forces it. Chris talks about literally deleting distracting social media apps off his phone, waking up 30 minutes early just to avoid the stress of rushing out the door, and intentionally scheduling time to do absolutely nothing so he can gather his thoughts. You need a system that sets you up for success. True self-alignment requires actively designing an environment where your best self can actually thrive. And so, we end with this quiet, undeniable reality: discipline over motivation. Imagine that final moment of his morning. The calm exhaustion, the steady breathing, that beautiful stillness of knowing the hardest part of the day is already conquered. The work is done, but the journey absolutely continues. As you look at the structure of this silent grind, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on today. Are your daily actions simply chasing a temporary fleeting reward, or are they silently, relentlessly forging who you truly are? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.